call the June 9th special meeting of the Union County Fire Commission to order, and welcome everybody to the meeting. We do have one change to the agenda that we need to make. It'd be item 1B. We need to add in approval of the minutes from the last meeting. Is there any other agenda items that we need to change? If hearing none, all those in favor, or I guess I need a motion to
Make a
approve.
motion.
Second.
In the agenda.
All those in favor of amending the agenda as presented? Aye. Any opposed? Good. Okay. Item 1B, has everybody had an opportunity to read over the minutes? Fire Marshal Rigoli emailed them out a little while back, and if not, we got printed copies. Is there any questions or concerns about it?
Make a motion to approve this.
Seconded.
You'll have to tell me who's doing what I'm trying to write, I'm sorry.
Don made the motion, and Chief Gaddy made the motion, and Dave McDonald second.
Thanks, sorry guys.
Any further discussion? Not, all those in favor of approving as presented, aye. Any opposed? Like sign. Dave, you pass those around now, they've been approved. Ray might want a copy. These other guys over here, that's just the minutes from the last meeting. One other order of housekeeping that we need to do is we set a regular meeting schedule 2 meetings ago, but we failed to approve the regular meeting location. All of that has to be a part of that. So our regular meeting schedule is the first Tuesday night of every even month. So, and it needs to be the first Tuesday night of every even month in the personnel training room, the first floor of the Government Center at 7:00 p.m.
That's here, right?
Yes, sir. So we just need to make that adjustment so that we can get it on the notice that stays up all the time.
You need a motion, John?
Yes.
I make that motion that we clarify the time and location as you just described.
Second.
Any further discussion on the meeting location? If I hear none, all those in favor of making that change?
Where do you believe?
Here.
Okay.
You want to come down here? You got a copy of the minutes?
No, I don't.
Okay, there's some going around. Copy of the minutes from the last meeting, and the agenda is going around as well, Mark. Okay. The next item on the agenda is to discuss the fire chief staffing plan that was presented in 2010. We've been asked by the funding work group to go back and look at that funding or staffing plan from 2010 and see if it needs to be changed, updated, or whatnot, and trying to bring it up to current 2015-16. I went back and pulled the notes out from when we established that group then, and I think probably my opinion of it is what we need to do is put that group back together, let them go back and take a look at what they did in 2010 and make the necessary adjustments to the way population changes that have came out since then, and take a look at some other factors that drive that. The goal is for this group to have a recommendation for the fire chiefs meeting, which is the first Tuesday of next month. And then it goes through the fire chiefs the first Tuesday. Then the commission will need to have another special meeting next month to approve that staffing plan so that we can present that on the second Monday of next month to this funding group.
That was pretty good, that rolled right off your tongue. Like,
It was confusing at first,
Yeah,
I caught on,
yeah.
Got it?
As long as you got it.
So basically what has to happen is this group's gotta come up with a plan, has to be approved by the fire chiefs, then it has to be approved by this group, and then it'll go to the funding committee as a recommendation. So,
All within 30 days or something?
all within 30 days.
Tight.
Yeah, we already have the plan, we just need to go back and refresh it and work it up to the current levels and kind of what's going on in the county today versus what was going on in 2010.
And I'm assuming that's the basic, you know, what you're staffing engine, ladders, and rescues on, going out the door? Is that the basic?
I'm gonna let Chief Gaddy discuss all of that, and in a nutshell, it was designed to, at the time in 2010, to meet 1720 as a county. In other words, in order to meet the minimum staffing requirements, you don't have to do that from your department specifically. You can use automatic aid departments around you to meet your effective response force. And that's the way the plan was designed. So you have departments that are in the rules sections, and I don't want to steal your thunder on this, but have departments that are in the rules sections that are required to have 6 people. We were using 3 departments with 2, 2, and 2 to meet that 6-person effective response force based on travel distance, road miles, times. Yeah, and in effect with the staffing and a couple of other things that were put into place at the time, the tanker task force, all of those things, it was aimed at addressing some of the ISO needs of the rural departments. That, you know, we had a long presentation last night from the emergency service director on 1710, 1720 NFPA standards and North Carolina Department of Insurance rating schedule as it applies to personnel only. You know, so we talked the personnel thing last night in the funding group, and I will promise everybody that what I'll do is, I know Kurt's out of town today. When he gets back, he's going to be forwarding out his presentation that he did last night to the group, and I'll forward that to everybody, you know, on the fire commission, so that you'll have an opportunity to read through that and understand it. You know, and if we need to, the next meeting we'll have him or Fire Marshal Regola to go over that staffing plan or his presentation with us as a group to explain it. So that's kind of the gist of the way that thing was set out. Now there's been some changes there's been an update to come out in NFPA standards since that time. There's been growth. There's been high density things that have gone on based on the risk assessments. All of those things too. So there's been some changes since 2010 that need to be applied to the staffing model. At the time, when that staffing model was approved through the Fire Commission, went to the county commissioners, and it was on a 4-year rollout plan. Well, what we said was, if we went to a fire department and they decided that they didn't want the paid people, that they didn't have to take them, they didn't want the staffing, you know, the daytime staffing, then they didn't have to take them. But they had to demonstrate that they could meet the minimum 9S requirement, which is 4 people in an engine company for a response in their area. And if they could do that, then they weren't required to take the minimum staffing. Is that fair? Is that, so you go ahead and kind of lay out what your plan was. Do you think we need to go over the old plan to see the new plan later on? I mean, I'll take that as whatever you guys think you want to hear. I've heard it before several times.
Did you say there's a small group that's going to be appointed to look
There's
at this?
a group that's already established. The only thing is that we have to do, you remember when we did all this before? You remember doing this staffing plan before, so you saw this before. Is the time frame and whatnot. Chief Gaddy's already been in touch with the other fire chiefs that were a part of this thing before. And they're all going to come back to work on that. And it looks like we need one person from the fire commission, go back on there, because that would be, you wanna recommend
I recommend
Todd?
Todd, yeah.
Okay,
Because he hasn't seen it, so I think a fresh set of eyes would do good on it. And I have a copy of the 58-page report we did before.
that you'll get this evening.
Okay.
So I think that's the plan, is to kind of, get that group back together and make a pitch. So do y'all just want to wait till next month to hear the new plan? What's the pleasure of the commission? Do you want to hear it tonight, what we currently have, and then you'll be able to evaluate what, obviously, we can send out both plans to everybody prior to the next meeting, so that you'll have an opportunity to compare both plans and have some understanding of what's going on. I'm at the pleasure of you guys. You tell me what you want to see, and we'll make it happen.
There's not a new plan yet.
There is not a new plan yet.
Suggestion, the next meeting, look at the old one, look at the new one.
Okay.
Because there's not a new one to look at right now, right?
But we have a timing issue, right?
It's very tight.
Well, I said timing, I mean, we don't have another meeting before.
We'll have to schedule one.
Okay, so we'll have to do a
So
special.
what the plan is we'll probably do another special meeting after the fire chiefs meeting.
Which is on July 7th.
Yeah, somewhere out that week, because the next, you have to look at your calendar, the next funding committee is the second Monday, and that they meet on the first Tuesday.
The next funding committee will be on July 20th.
No, the one after that,
Second Monday. That is the second.
July.
20th.
Is it? So, yeah, so we got a little bit of time in there. No, it'll be the first meeting in July.
Yeah.
The first meeting in July will be the funding committee meeting will be
Second Monday.
the second Monday, unless it'll be 13th.
Yeah, that'll be the meeting that we need to be ready for, is on the
So
13th.
we'll have to meet.
Sometime that week.
Like between the 7th and the 13th?
Yeah.
That's
So,
5, 6 whole days.
Okay.
yeah. So that's kind of where that's at. So I need a motion, to appoint Todd.
I'll make a motion we appoint Mr. Elmore to the staffing committee.
Staff, don't get confused. Second that, Dave seconded. Any further discussion on appointing Mr. Elmore to the staffing committee? Hearing none, all those in favor of that? Aye. Any opposed, like sign, very good. Okay, and now, what I heard you say is you would like to wait till the next meeting, and how about if we do this, and I think this will be the easiest thing for us to do. Chief, can you send out, I know you still have it on your email, can you send out, or send it to me, I probably still got it, I just have to find it. But send it to me, and I'll send the current 2010 model to everybody. And then that way you guys will have that to go ahead and be mulling over. And we did the report, I don't know if you have that still electronic, probably. If you do, I don't know if you want the 50 pages, if you have a little executive summary or whatnot, you can write up on that and send out, would be handy.
Yeah, there was a summary in the first
Okay.
period.
Yeah, and if we can just kind of do a little executive summary to send out kind of the methodology that we went through to get to that point would be real handy out there. Okay?
I don't know where it's at.
Okay.
I saw
You
it.
got one, you got one, you know you got one, that's good.
Yeah.
Is there any further discussion on that staffing plan?
Johnny, how I'm thinking about it, so I'm just trying to make sure I'm thinking about this right. So you got the 2010 plan, a lot has happened since then. And so you gotta like overlay if the regs moved,
Right.
and then the conditions in Union County.
Have
And
changed.
so at least in theory, you'll see where we're fine and where we might have gaps.
Right,
And then where there's gaps, there'll be recommendations about how to solve the gaps or
That's
not
right.
solve the gaps.
that's correct.
Okay.
That's
thank you.
correct, yes.
Okay.
One thing I need, Kevin, I need a new copy of Baker's District.
Yeah, from their new station location.
It got sent out.
Yeah, you should have got that.
We'll need it electronically.
I sent it to you electronically.
And
To the funding folks?
2010 was Unionville's substation there. Okay.
Mhm. Do you still have all that stuff that I sent for the,
Yeah,
to
still,
the committee folks?
got in another folder.
Yeah, I got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we want-
That was the one you told me your map was wrong.
Yeah, well, it still is.
Okay. Any further discussion on that?
We want to go ahead and schedule our meeting for after the Chiefs meeting?
Yeah, we'll do that. We're gonna do that toward the end.
Oh, okay.
We'll get it set.
Gotcha.
We'll get something figured out so that I can get the notice to Lynn. And otherwise, on our regular scheduled meetings, you should get the email. If you don't get an email, call me. You should get it at least a week in advance. If you don't get it, call me. Okay? No further discussion on staffing plan. If not, we'll move on to agenda item number 4. This agenda item was at the request of Mr. Oak.
Yes, prior to me coming on the fire commission, I was asked if I would be interested in coming on the fire commission, and I said, no, not really, I'm old, retired, and having a good time. And with further information, I was told, well, the fire commission hadn't met in like over a year, and that got my interest right there, why not? Because the fire commission used to meet monthly and was very active back in the day. And so that got my interest, and I decided, okay, I'll throw my name in. Well, here I am. I had me and David had a meeting to go over some of the items that are going on, and one of the things I brought up to Dave was the definition, or whatever you want to call this, of the role of the fire commission. And when I read it to him, he looked at it and said, yeah, so. He said, so anyway, I kind of agreed with him. I thought about it. I said, what is the role? Why did the fire commission become suppressed, if that's the correct word? Why weren't they meeting and functioning? And I guess that's another long story. Then just in the last week, I read the BFIS, the 2010 report. And I gotta say, I've read a lot of reports, and this, I think, was a pretty good report. There's a lot of good information in it. There's some things in there I don't agree with, but one of them was it says countywide fire department standardization, fire commission with limited role and responsibility in true direction, and said it. And then I took this right out of this: establish, redefine fire commission roles in providing strategic counsel to the county chiefs association, drive county standardization and advocacy. Fire commissioner responsible for, and I don't know what they mean by assuring, but assuring deployment, standardized SOGs, and training standards. So I had a little conversation with David again, and I had one with Johnny. Let's throw this out here, and matter of fact, I'll let David explain. He's a little bit more knowledgeable, a lot of the technical stuff.
No, I mean, I guess I was saying to Bill when we had this conversation is, and I have previous experience in another state in a similar commission. And to me, it's some version of like the 800-pound elephant. I mean, this is big and it's complex. And we can end up talking about different parts at every one of the meetings, but I'm not sure that aims us very well. And so what I was supportive of Bill is if there's some particular aim, because I think we serve at the pleasure of the commissioners, if there's some particular aim or priorities they have, I think that'd be helpful for us to know, because it's big and it's complex, and we can bounce around on a bunch of different topics, but if they have something specific in terms of their priorities, I think it would be helpful for us to know. So that's sort of where I was coming from. So the way the statute reads is there's a lot of running room in there, and I think that's intentional. I mean, I've seen that kind of language before, so I think it's intentional to have a lot of running room, but I think it would be helpful. This is a whole new commissioner group, I assume, since 2010. Just knowing what their sense of priorities are would help aim us a little better. So that was the thought.
I also did mention this to Commissioner Helms about our definition, and he said, we'll get together and talk about it, do something. I mentioned Dave, and he said, yeah, let's get together and define it. And I guess make our role, what would the word be, more defined or?
Yeah, more focused, I mean, about
Focused.
priorities, but.
Todd has some good
Again,
comments.
there's a
too.
lot of experience at this table here, and besides you and me, Bill, we're probably the short timers here. You have a previous life here, but, so that was the thought, but again, there might be better advice around the table here.
Todd had some interesting comments too about the.
No, my thing was just the county commissioners, tell us, and I think they did the last one, what they need us to do, and we do it. So I don't know if there's a solution besides them giving us an agenda of what they want us to do.
Well, I think the fire commission's role and their establishment or creation is done on a resolution of, I'm trying to remember what it's called.
Can you read it to you?
What is it?
Got it for you.
What is
It's a
it?
resolution of Union County Board of Commissioners establishing a system of rural fire protection in the
Fire
county.
protection.
And it was first adopted May 5th, 1969. It's had 4 revisions since, the last being January 17th, 2012.
And I think if we're gonna change our, I'll tell you, I think maybe the best thing to do is to send that out. You can send that out, to all the commissioners here and just kind of let them look at it. I don't have a problem with it. If we want to change that resolution or amend that resolution, I don't have a problem with recommending that to the county commissioners. If we think that, there's something there that we need to drive in a different direction, or if we need to figure out a way to tighten up the focus of what the group's working on, or whatever it is we need to do.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah,
I'm trying to figure things out on this.
okay.
All right. So I'm looking at the Chiefs Association, and I'm looking at the county commissioners, and I'm seeing 1, 2, 3 civilians, and everybody else in here are firefighters or fire chiefs.
Mhm.
So how does that differ between here and the fire chiefs? You're president of both, so I'm trying to figure out, so we kind of decide on the fire chief side, and then you bring it here to commissioners, and then we bring it there.
This group is a recommending board to the commissioners. We don't have any, I mean, we don't have the authority to pass anything.
Why? Yeah.
So we're
but it's
just-
the next step
Yeah,
up
right.
is the way
So-
I'm trying to.
Yeah, so the way it works is, if we have something to come out of the fire chiefs or fire and rescue association, then it comes before this group as a, sounding board, so to speak, and then we would make a recommendation to the commissioners, one way or the other. So the way it's been in the past, since I've been on here, we've received that direction. It's what drove this staffing plan, it's what drove the rescue plan, to redo the rescue districts and the training and certification on that. It's what drove some of the ISO, plans as we move forward here, so.
So have they communicated with us now, like, so the staffing plan is really coming out of that other group, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
I know back in the day, and Don's probably the only one to remember this, Johnny Mike, he's almost old enough. Back in the day, the fire commission played a pretty big important role in the county, and the fire chiefs would bring items to the fire commission, and it would get discussed and come up with solutions to problems and things like that, so.
And they still do. I mean, the Fire Chiefs Association does bring things before this group. They just haven't had to recently.
So what action do you think we need to take? Would sending the resolution out, letting everybody read what we're supposed to be doing based on the resolution, and then take a look at that, if it needs to be changed, to make a recommendation, or?
I mean, I'm not asking for, or
Change
suggesting
it.
a change in the
You might
resolution.
have educated us all just now, enough for me.
Yeah.
I figured out what he said, and how it works. You know, I think that was where I just had a couple of questions.
Yeah.
I'm happy.
Yeah, this is just a board, an advisory board for the county commissioners, so to speak. So.
But do we have any assignments right
Not right
now
now.
from the commission?
No.
If we don't have any assignments from them, okay.
But, and the issues that have been coming before the fire commission were brought by the Fire Chiefs Association. So we still, and that's kind of why we got back on a regular meeting schedule, so that everybody would have that opportunity to bring issues to the commission here. And then, like I said, what comes out of here goes straight to the county commissioners. Either in the form of a letter or time on the agenda of the commission.
So this funding group, it's got a name, right? What do you call that group?
Community stakeholders.
The group from last night?
Yes.
So they're asking the fire commission for some
Right,
help?
right.
And we're okay with that?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm okay with that.
Well, and it's because that group was set out with the task
Right.
to bring it back to the commissioners, and we're gonna recommend to that group, which ultimately is to
Okay.
the commissioners. So I think we're within the scope of our resolution
I would agree.
in that work.
So that's a big deal right now.
Mhm.
So, I mean, and that's plenty of work for now, would seem.
I got some work for you too later.
I'm busy.
No, listen, nobody gets away easy. Bill's retired. So is everybody okay with what we got? I mean,
And so right now, we could just say our priority is supporting the staffing plan
Right.
reassessment process and informing the commissioners of our point of view at the right time. Most likely within the next 45 days, right?
Yep,
Based on all those dates you rolled off.
that's right.
Okay. I mean, that works for me. So I know where we're aimed right now.
I'm happy.
Okay. Okay, next agenda item. Number 5, again, Mr. Oak, I want to talk about the 2010 fire study.
I was just made aware of this a week ago, and like I said, it seems.
You really have been retired then, haven't you?
I've been busy everywhere but Union County, and
Yeah, because that fire study's been talked about twice a month since 2010, at least.
I found it to be pretty informative, a lot of good information. Like I said, not everything I agree with, and I just want to bring it up for discussion. Is it being used, is it being utilized, and that was my.
What do you want to know? Which part of it being used? What do you want to know about? I can
Well,
tell
actually,
you whatever you wanna know.
is this a useful report to the fire chiefs and the fire departments in the county? I guess that would be my question.
Yes,
And
yes, and we have utilized, quite a large part of it.
John?
Yes.
I can answer some of Mr. Oak's questions right quick if you'd like me to.
Yeah.
Recommendations, do you have a copy? I'm sure you do. If you'll go to 1025 to the recommendations.
well,
You got a short version.
you don't really need to get it into detail. If it's
Okay,
being
all right,
used
so
and
here's some of the
utilized,
things, here's some of the things that have occurred. Dispatch protocols. Those have been developed by the fire chiefs
All right.
and since been incorporated in dispatch protocols. A countywide fire service record management system using Firehouse Cloud was another recommendation that was made that's been taken care of since. The community stakeholders group that was formed, it covers many of the recommendations out of that study when it talks about viability moving forward of volunteer and combination fire service in Union County. The other things that have been developed is fire station replacements that were indicated in the study. The Wesley Chapel Station has been replaced since then. The Baker's Fire Station has been replaced since then. Fairview is the only one that was noted for replacement in the plan that's not been addressed as of yet. And speaking with Chief McBride, he's actively working on that. And I think that once this stakeholders meeting gets finished and they figure out the contracts and the funding solutions, that there should be a mechanism in place to address that as well. The rest of the things here are on timelines of 2016, 2017 contracts. It talked about renegotiating contracts, so that will be done after the stakeholders figure out where those contracts need to be. It talked about EMS response, and that contract has been signed. It was approved last year. And those are really the things that it talked about and addressed. So the things there's been a lot of good come out of the 2010 study that is tangible today. The fire stations, the record management service, the manpower and staffing surveys that staffing groups put forward. So yes, it's not been a document that sat on the shelf and gotten dusty. It's been a living document and will continue to be so, because as we said earlier tonight, there's been lots of changes in the county since 2010. And any document such as this, it's got to be a living document. Otherwise, you're behind the times before you ever get it completed.
It's been a worthwhile expenditure in a document that's proven out to be worthwhile, so that's.
History will tell us
That's
that,
good.
yes, sir.
It probably needs to be updated to stay on top of, not behind.
Well, there's a couple things. One of the things is that, you know, that's, the study was never actually accepted. It was never went any further than the draft stage. And that's because at the time, the county commissioners refused to allow him to come in and give a presentation to accept the document. So it's always still been in a draft form, which is a pretty easy out. Well, it's just a draft. But, and to what Fire Marshal Rigoli said, there have been a lot of things that have been done out of the study. I actually have a list of every single one of the recommendations and what was done, what's being done at this time. I've kept this since 2010. I still go back and write down every time we change something on one of the recommendations as to what we've done and what, you know, the things, you know, a lot of the stuff relative to the fire departments that were under the control of the fire chiefs and the things like that, we went ahead and implemented, you know, a long time ago, a lot of the standard SOGs. You know, we have a lot of, we have a group of countywide policies that play in, you know, that take into account the city of Monroe as well as every county fire department. So we try to build on that, you know. Union EMS was not a part of this study.
They talk about EMS.
The EMS contract part was fire departments are not required to respond to EMS calls through the contract we currently have. There was a lot of things that there just absolutely was no funding to do. I mean, you know, that's the bottom line. It takes money to implement a lot of this stuff. And
Right.
if you look at the long term, you know, there's still things in this study that we need to be doing. We're talking about the staffing right now. If you go back and look at his staffing, we're talking about the funding. Funding of fire protection in Union County, it's written right here in this document. He made a recommendation on how to fund the fire service. You know, so it's picked and parted out as to what, you know, wants to be used. I mean, is there any better way to say that?
Now, the fire commission has used it, even though the
Yes.
county has not.
That's right.
And the chiefs association has used it. We've got a lot of policies that came out of it.
And if you want to come sit down with me and go over all these recommendations, what's been done and where we're at, I'd be happy to do that, just not tomorrow.
I trust you. I trust your judgment.
Just not tomorrow. Or Friday.
Okay. I think you answered my question, and
I mean, I'll be happy to share any of this with you that I can. This is, I know from a chief's perspective going through it, I learned a lot out of going through this process and spending time with these guys from VFIS. You know, I still call him fairly regular. I still talk to him on a regular basis. just because from time to time I have a question and he can answer. So I still talk to him. I see him every year. He comes to Concord every year for the Midwinter Chiefs Conference and gives a lecture on some VFIS policy. So I still see him every year there.
See how Pennsylvania is that guy?
He is.
Yeah. Forget his name. What was it?
King of Prussia,
King of Prussia. I know where that station is.
Bill Genoway.
Bill Jim.
Dr. Bill Genoway. And has a very fine pedigree as to what he knows. To go along with that. So he's actually the fire chief of King of Prussia.
I know that station.
So yeah, we still talk on a regular basis. So we're still talking about a lot of the things. One of the things was to address the ISO ratings of all the fire departments, and we talked about that last night in the funding committee. You were
Right.
there. I think you may not have been able to hear it, Devin. That's why he has to sit right here beside him.
I'm taking that as a recommendation.
But, the ISO plan, one of the things was to work toward sixes. And I think from a perspective, one of the things that I want to say, we have a lot of fire departments that are straight rated at 9S. And that has to do with the ability for those departments to get a better than 9 inspection. The ability for us to pick up the phone and call the Department of Insurance, and first of all, get somebody to answer the phone or get somebody to call you back in a timely manner never happens. The other thing is that once you get on the list, it may be 12 months and it may be 18 months before you hear back on when they're gonna come do the inspection. That's how far behind that they are.
They've been limited on staff.
And so it's not that, I think every fire department that goes through an inspection, obviously if you're hydrated, you're gonna get a split rate. So your hydrated area, you may be able to get a 6, and your non-hydrated, you may stay at 9S. But what we've been working on as a group is, in the Chiefs Association, is learning how to do the water haul and making sure we get the task force implemented on a county-wide basis, and that's been out there for several years now. Most everybody has their system set up. We're 1 or 2 trucks away from being good. And once we can get those into place, New Salem's going in July to do the water haul. I've encouraged all the fire chiefs to go watch to see how easy it is for them to do. And, hopefully when they see that, they'll be like, yeah, we can do that, no problem. And then most of the fire departments in their 5-mile insurance district, we can get a straight rated 6. But we also have to take into account what the cost is to the community. And that's up to each individual fire chief and fire department board of directors if they're willing to spend the money that it costs to get to a 6, or if they can do it without a lot of expense. It makes perfect sense. So some communities are not willing to spend the money to get to a 6 to save $100 a year on their insurance rate or insurance premium. So you got to play all those odds through before you start down that road. Yep.
Well, how about the ones that, I don't know about the west side, but on the east side, we've got some that are rated as, what is it, 10? Yeah, non-insurance
Yeah.
because of the mileage.
Yep.
So how can we look at that as a county to combat that other than in a building state?
That's the only way. I mean, you answered your own question.
Yeah, you have to put a substation in, which increases the number of manpower that you got to have by 8.
Well, and I think you gotta look at what's in that 10 area.
Mm-hmm.
I know that there's some 10 areas, and the fire marshal just sent out a map to the funding committee on all the 10 areas. And when I look at those maps where there's 10s, a lot of times it's a field and 1 house.
Right.
So does it make a lot of sense to go build a fire
It's
station?
only a handful of,
Yeah.
I can,
Again,
that's
that's-
some areas, it's more than just a handful,
Yeah.
but yeah, we, just because of the way the road, by the crow fly, we're fine, but if you go by the road travel, then you gotta go around, back
Yeah.
up.
And so that's a decision that each fire department and their board of directors is gonna have to make. And that's the only way to answer that. At the time, I mean, there's been a lot of changes in the rating schedule. Probably one of the biggest issues that came out of that was when we went from meets and bounds to the GIS system. Because under meets and bounds, we had a lot of 5 mile district that was not 5 miles. You know, because under meets and bounds, it's from this point, you know, to this point, that didn't take into account the road system. And so we sailed that ship several years ago and switched everything over to GIS. So we caught a lot, we didn't, the insurance companies caught a lot of those areas that were getting that 5 mile insurance district, and they were actually 6 or more. And so when we switched to the 9E extended district inspection in the county, that's when all that was caught. That's when the GIS maps were rolled out and they did the road mileage from each station, and they played through all those scenarios. So that was probably the biggest change to the insurance districts, was whenever they went to GIS for meets and bounds. If we could go back to meets and bounds, we could sneak a lot of that in. I don't think they'll let us do that now.
Not with today's
Computers.
Yeah.
So, but there was a lot of recommendations, you know, in that, you know, there was 32 recommendations that came out of the fire study. And like I said, I've gotten them all written down, and I make changes to them when something changes, just so that I can keep track of where we are. And from our perspective, it's been a good document for the fire chiefs to use.
Yeah.
So, anything?
Satisfied. Sounds good.
All right, let me close this
Here,
here.
I want to use the report again here in a minute.
Okay. What you got? You wanna just talk about it straight out there, or is that part of this incident reporting and activity reports that you wanna talk about?
Yeah, the incident reporting system, of course, when I came up with this, it's been approved to go to the firehouse reporting system. And I think one of the questions got answered last night. Is this a mandatory system for all departments to participate?
Yes, sir.
Yes, so is there any consequence if they don't? I didn't think of that till today. Is there a consequence if they
Is
say?
it addressed in the contract?
Yeah, so like, say, 2 or 3 of them say, heck no, we're not gonna participate.
Well, North Carolina General Statute states that fire departments have to submit to the county fire marshal. And we're still gonna, there are departments that are direct reporting to the state.
Right.
And they're still gonna direct report to the state. We're not making any changes there. But they just gotta provide us what they submit to the state for our data analysis. And in order for me to review submittals, my software has to be speaking the same language as their software. So if you've got somebody that wants to use Joe Blow's incident reporting system, I'm not gonna accept it.
Sounds good. Then we go to activity reports. This is something I've asked Kevin for too, and Curtis, that at least the detailed activity for 2014 of each fire department.
I provided all that to you by email
I'm still trying to decipher it.
a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, I am working on, I think I'm gonna have to get someone to teach me how to.
I broke it down, number of structured fires, number of whatever the coding was, hazmat incidents, gas leaks. I
Yeah, it was
provided
broken
all
down
that
enough.
to you by email a couple of months ago.
I'm trying to decipher that. The reason I'm bringing that up is that was an issue in this report back in 2010, and the data was from Emergency Dispatch Center, indicates response for the periods so far. At the end of this, it says, other than the state numbers are rising each year, the data is too limited to provide significant interpretations. I mean, I can say, okay, alarms, 646 or 800. What does that mean?
Well, one issue that they had on the fire study was that some areas, and I'll use New Salem as an example, we've got multiple zip codes. And so we share a zip code with Beaver Lane. We also share a zip code with Monroe and with Burnsville.
Yeah.
So that makes it very, very difficult for CCOM to track the data, but Larry has been working on rectifying that situation.
Right, yeah, that was in here. What I'm looking for is the detailed activity. It used to be, and I still think they do, each department has a yearly report of their activities broken down into the detail of their activity.
You have to check the individual fire chiefs. It's not provided to me now. The only thing that we get is the import against it.
Let me, I'll fire on that a minute. And what I'm gonna say to that is, what that was designed as, and what should be happening, is at our annual meetings, that's when my annual report goes out. So at my annual meeting at my fire station, I present that report to the general members that show up at my annual meeting, and they get a report of Hemi Bridge Fire Department's activities. And that includes, of course, we do a financial report then at the general membership meeting. Every fire department's pretty much the same. And I basically have a one-page annual report that I use. Because if you get much beyond that, they don't care. Right. So I try to do everything into one page for them to look at. It's got a pretty little chart, tells where the calls were ran. It's got the little heat map on there that kind of shows where the calls are at in our area. And the numbers break down along with, the top 10 accomplishments, and who and what, when and where and how we did everything over that year. And that's what this annual report is. That's not something that he was generating. That's something
correct.
that each fire department was generating at their annual meeting. And that's what that was designed for. Now, what you're looking for is where he was talking about he was having problems getting the data.
Right.
And he got the data. He just didn't have a way to break it out without buying some software to do it. And I think that's kind of what used to. I see you got a report from. I see you have a report from 1987 or 88 here. And this is back when we had our fire reports hanging on a clipboard at a stand-up desk in the bay, and it took like 5 minutes.
This was provided to the fire marshal's office on a monthly basis and a yearly basis.
But we also used to get a book every year from the state that broke down each one of us. We don't ever get that anymore. We used to get a book from the U.S. Fire Administration that said this is what the statistics were in the United States. We don't get that anymore. And I think
And they don't get that anymore either.
yeah,
you don't get
done this bill since 1980.
This one-
Get it through the.
See, even back then, we had problems. The fire departments didn't want to provide it, so we had to put a little rider on there.
Well,
We
it's
don't get
not
it by
that-
the 6th, you don't get paid.
It's not that we didn't want to provide it, it's when we were running 300 calls a year, we were extremely busy. And now we're running 2,000 calls a year, so we're a little busier.
So Kevin, how I think about this is, data and analytics is a big deal pretty much in any business. So you're a veteran of how many months now in the role?
87 days here.
not that you're counting, right?
Yeah.
So by the 89th day, could you figure all this out? No. So I think what I'll be interested in over time is when you actually have a reliable reporting system and this stuff is coming in a way that you can manage. I mean, the question will be, what kind of trends are you interested in following and making sure folks are aware? So, I'm hoping through this new system that you'll actually get the data part down. I don't know how you do analytics, whether you do that on the weekends or whether you actually had somebody who can do that work. But
Yeah, they've hired somebody.
Yeah, we've actually, the county's hired somebody to do that for us. So
Okay.
There's lots of good things when we all are using the same platform and we can all talk back and forth.
And the fact of the matter is the fire departments that have already broke off of this county system that they're using now was for that reason. Because when I did my annual report, what I was having to do is I was having to take my data and I was having to pay somebody to write a program to
Right.
pull out what I needed.
Right,
Okay, and so I said, well, if I'm doing that every year over a 3-year period, I can pay for this software and I can do all that myself. So that's why we went with this program. So that's how I make my annual report. It's just make a report on whatever I want. I can special design them. I can pick from a pick list. You know, if I want to know what our turnout time is, bam, right there. And just pick a range and it does it and spits out the report in
so the good news
5
is,
minutes.
we got everybody on the same data platform?
We will have,
for
yes, sir.
reporting.
That's what we're doing.
And what will be the timing? Does that take several months before that?
It'll take a couple of months to get
Okay.
there, yes, sir.
So, and as you know, once you start producing reports, people will get greedy, right? They'll want to see different cuts, et cetera, but that's a nice problem to have.
Well, the good thing about it is the individual fire departments are gonna be able
To
to
do that.
look at their own stuff. So the only thing that, and I've not had a chance to run this by all the chiefs, but really the only thing that I envision coming from the county at that point is like Johnny said, this is an annual report countywide. If you've got questions about your individual fire stations that serve you, they can provide you their smaller criteria.
Well, I mean, I think what you will have is this roll-up capability, right?
Mhm.
And
Yes,
so
sir.
I'd be looking for trends year over year, you know, winter
Right.
versus winter, summer versus.
And that's what I'm gonna be looking
Right,
for
right.
fire prevention,
Right.
for grants that we're trying to explore, things like that.
And that's what we use it for now. And
Right.
I'm on Firehouse now at my place, and I mean, you know, it's like we're able to compare a lot of different things. We're able to track our equipment usage and, you know, maintenance, and it's
Good.
fairly helpful.
Oh, okay.
Well, one of the things I had,
I'm not sure about this cloud thing, but the rest of
As long
it.
as it don't rain,
Cloud, you're not putting it out to the cloud, Johnny? What's up with that?
No, I keep my stuff where I can.
What if
get
the
it
fire
out.
station burns down?
Yeah, I can still go through the file box. It's fireproof. Sprinkle, build sprinkle.
Okay, all right. Make sure it's waterproof.
one of the questions that came up, and I was speaking with one of the commissioners, was how does the county, and I guess precisely the county manager, take a budget that's presented by a fire department, and how do they determine, okay, this budget's in line, out of line, what do we leave in, what do we take out, if you don't know what that fire department's doing? That,
Well, now, Bill, I'm gonna stop you because
Oh.
I can't answer for the county manager.
no, well, I'm not asking you to.
Yeah, I can't tell you how she does it.
No, I'm not asking.
I can't do
Um,
that.
I guess maybe I should just leave her name out of that. If you have a budget, how do you determine that it's a good budget, what to leave in and what to take out if you don't know anything about the department and their activity? I guess that's where that question goes.
That's a good question, but, you know, I think this is the wrong group. We don't have anything to do with that. And I think that's a good question, but to a different group. And
Okay.
I'm just outside speaking in, but be careful how you, to me, how you would approach that with the county commissioners, because then if they really want to start micromanaging, then here we go, the county telling departments how to function. So right now, the way I understand it, they're leaving it to us chiefs to kind of submit and trust us with money.
board of directors.
Yes,
Board of
yeah, board of
directors.
directors, you know, saying, okay, this is what we need to function. You know, they're not really questioning it per se, but I think if you start throwing that question up, then to me, it would seem like they would want to start nitpicking.
Well, this went along with the sustainable funding of fire departments. It fits right into that. You know, what the fire departments want for money, what do they need for money, and it's part of that sustainability. How do we do
It's
uh,
that?
up to each fire department board of directors to come up with their budget.
Yeah.
And then it gets approved or it gets massaged.
And how that process plays out,
We don't have any idea.
We don't know.
You know, okay.
I'm
Only
saying,
thing-
I think
The only
that's,
thing we know is we submit our budgets that are itemized and our expense reports that are itemized for the same items every year. So they set out the spreadsheet of what they want.
Okay.
And just recently asked for, and,
Financial statement.
yeah, financial statements for the past 2 years. So,
Thank you very much.
See, anybody else got, anybody else got anything on incident reports, activity reports? If not, we need to set the meeting schedule. You got your calendar? Let me get mine. He's had it out since we got here. He's already trying to figure it out. So I said that the fire chiefs will meet on the 7th. Yes, the fire chiefs meet July the 7th. That leaves the 8th or 9th, which is a Wednesday or a Thursday of that same week. Dave?
Right.
We're looking at your schedule.
Well, you,
You and Mark are the only ones. Don's retired.
the
Don's
ninth,
retired. Bill's
the
retired.
ninth is the.
Yeah, see, I don't even look at the calendar, you
Devin
just
and I
tell me
don't
when to
really
be
matter.
here.
You just have to show up.
It's you and Mark.
Pressure's on here.
Yeah.
So the ninth is better for me,
Is
Thursday.
that good?
I agree with him, yeah. So,
Thursday the 9th. I gotta write this down.
You just
July
tell
the
me,
ninth.
you tell me the month and the date, and I'll be here.
July the 9th at 7 p.m. in room 131, employee training room for HR on the first floor of the Government Center.
Just
So,
call it the HR training room.
first floor, 31.
Well, they don't know, people may not know where it is, so they have to do the whole thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Ask the guy that did.
Where's that room at?
This is it. You're in it. You're good, Bill.
Okay, I'm good.
Okay. Is everybody okay with that? So can we get let's make a motion in a second.
Make a- Thursday, July 9th, make a motion.
Second.
David seconded. All those in favor of meeting that night?
Aye.
Opposed? Good. Now I need one more motion, Donald, from you.
Go home.
Second.
Actually, is there anybody else that has any further business? If not,
Make a motion, we adjourn.
Second.
Dave, where'd that come from? Okay, sorry.
What you mean, hold?